Welcome to the Superintendent's Hangout, where we discuss topics in education, charter schools, life in general, and not necessarily in that order. I'm your host, Dr. Sharetta. Come on in and hang out. In this episode, I was privileged to sit down virtually via Zoom with Patricia Barneond, aka Patty. Patty joined us from the headquarters of Safe Passage. You can find them online, safepassage.org, in Guatemala City, where she serves as the Senior Director of Education and the Director of the Hanley Denning Experimental School. Safe Passage is a wonderful, transformative nonprofit organization that was founded by the late Hanley Denning more than 20 years ago, and its mission is to provide and create a space for a safe passage between home and school and back to home for the children of the adults who make a living and sometimes live in the Guatemala City garbage dump. It's the largest landfill in Central America. It's vast. I've visited it. It is mind-blowing in its scale, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families that survive scavenging, and Patty uses that term and talks about the life of folks who survive that way, items from the garbage dump. And so what Safe Passage does is it provides a safe and engaging space for children to be before school. And then when they're done with school, instead of being perhaps on the street or not having a place to go because their parents are still working, they go back to the Safe Passage facilities. Safe Passage also now has accredited schools. And so Patty talks about the joy of shifting the paradigm and the misunderstandings around the lives of students who grow up in an environment that's as challenging as those who grow up around Safe Passage, and how now those children are going on to local high schools and are being recognized for their resilience, for their grit, for their level of creativity, critical thinking. We had a wide-ranging conversation. We touched on the role and the presence of trauma in students' and adults' lives, the impact of COVID, curricular design, the fact that Safe Passage embraces a project-based learning approach rather than what is found in most schools in Guatemala that's very didactic, teacher-led, students in rows, teacher depositing, students hopefully receiving and digesting with very little comment. And so Safe Passage is transformative in so many different ways. Patty is inspirational, and it was an uplifting conversation for me to have at the end of a long day. And I hope you enjoy listening to Patty as much as I did in making this episode. Welcome, Patty. Thank you for joining us this afternoon on the Superintendent's Hangout, and especially a special welcome from 2 time zones away, where I believe you're joining us from Guatemala City.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, welcome. If you could start by sharing with the listeners a little bit about yourself, your history, your past, whatever you'd like to share that brings you up to the present moment in your work with Safe Passage, Camino Seguro in Guatemala City.
Yeah, sure. My name is Patricia Barneond. I live in Guatemala City. I have been a teacher for more than 30 years. Since I was very, very young, I knew I wanted to be a teacher and dedicate my life to education. So I graduated as an elementary teacher. Here in Guatemala, you're able to get your high school diploma and you make an extra year and you get your teacher formation certificate to be either an elementary or a preschool teacher. So I got to be an elementary. And then I went to the university to get my degree in school administration. And I was really happy with that. I was working in a private school and I made my career in that private school. And 27 years into that role, I decided it was time for a change, that I needed to do something different. So I took a sabbatic. At that time, I was back in the university getting another degree in education. and a master's in psychopedagogy and neurolearning. So I started to look for a place where I could serve and where I could do my research paper, but also make a difference in the lives of people that I knew I could do better. So I heard about Safe Passage, and they were looking for a curriculum designer at that point because they were rethinking the school. They had launched this big project of having an elementary school, and they were looking for this curriculum designer. So I thought, yes, that is something I can do. So I started there trying to help build this curriculum and try to give these kids better opportunity in education. And I really fell in love with what Safe Passage does. And 8 years later, I'm still here. And I have been doing different things. I started, as I told you, as the curriculum designer. Then I stepped in as the elementary principal, and then the middle school principal, and now I am the senior director for education in Safe Passage. So it has been a long time, but I'm really happy to be here and really dedicate my life to these kids.
Thank you for that. For our listeners who may not be familiar with overall the work of Safe Passage, would you mind giving us kind of an overview of this pretty remarkable organization, really one of a kind, and the work it does, and what's been the part that's really drawn you in as a lifelong educator?
Yeah, Safe Passage is an institution founded almost 25 years ago by Hanley Denning. Hanley came to Guatemala. She was here to learn Spanish. And then before leaving, she accompanied one of her friends to do a day in service at the dump. And there she discovered all the needs that this community had, because moms will go to the dump as scavengers and take their babies and their kids into the dump. And that was really risky. At that point, when she was there, one of the babies died, buried by trash. And that was something that really hit her heart. And she was willing to make the difference for this community. So she started kind of a daycare, baby care center in a church. And then that project started to grow and evolve. Kids were going to school, and she started an after-school program. So kids went to public schools, and she will help them with homework. She will help them to stay in school. Also, she started a nutrition program so kids could be well nourished while they were in school. Then she opened a early childhood program and a preschool. So kids started to grow their skills as youngsters to be ready to school later in life. And also the daycare center and the after-school program kept on growing and growing. Finally, they got to a reflection point, and Hanley died very young in a car accident. So the board took over the program, and they started reflecting on how to give these kids whose parents live, work at the city dump could get a better opportunity through education. So they decided to start a school, and that is now the Hanley Denning Elementary and Middle School. And they started creating a year at a time because they wanted to craft the school very carefully, so this could really mean a better opportunity for kids in education. So now, almost 25 years later, we have a full school that goes from 1st to 9th grade. We have a preschool for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, and we have an early childhood program for 3-year-olds. We serve around about 530 students in all. The after-school program is still running, but is running for the high school students because we don't have a high school. So kids finish in 9th grade and then they move into this Oportunidades program, and we support our students to go into high school, and they get tutoring, English, technology, so they can get a job, because these kids do need a job after they finish high school, in order not to go back to the dump, and really give these kids an opportunity to break this cycle of poverty they have been living in.
I don't know if our listeners can really appreciate what it means when you say families that live and work alongside or in the Guatemala City garbage dump. I visited the site, and we don't really, here in California, I don't have any frame of reference to compare it to. Could you just give a description of a little bit more? You mentioned this term kind of scavenging from the dump, but I think listeners should understand the economic realities that families face, and the fact that people are surviving on just a few dollars a day, and what that looks like. Could you give us paint that picture?
Sure. Parents are really, our parents are parents that really care for their kids, so they work really hard to make the best out of what they do, and is scavenging. They go early in the morning into the dump. They track the trucks that are coming in from the city with all the trash that they collect around the city. And when they have a site where this truck drops all the trash, and they go to that place and they kind of pull apart things that can be resold, recycled, reused in any way. So they have, they collect those things, and by the end of the day, they pull those things out of the dump and bring it to sellers that are outside the facility, and they make a few dollars out of it. You can think of them making maybe $4 to $8 in a good day. And with that, they feed their kids, they find a place to live, and try to make the best out of it.
And if you could, thank you for that description. You mentioned, it seems like even public schools in Guatemala, first of all, the traditional school hours are what, 4 hours a day? So there's a lot of time when students are not in school. And then isn't it the case that in order to go to school, students need to buy a uniform, need to have a backpack, school supplies, and all of those things? Talk to us about how Safe Passage steps in and supports in that.
Yeah. The community is a dangerous place for kids. You have gang members having their own headquarters in there. You have drug issues. You have sex abuse. So it's a very risky community for kids to hang alone or by themselves. And if parents are working full-time and they come back around 6 p.m., and if they go to a public school, they will be out of school by noon, so they will be by themselves 5-6 hours. So there's where Safe Passage comes in. When Hanley started the project, the idea was that the kids could be more time in school than outside the school. So school opens at 7 a.m. and we close at 3:30 p.m. So the kids have just a few hours being by themselves or being cared by grandma or somebody else in the community that offers that service to them. And that makes it for the kids to be safe and for the kids to be well taken care of and really healthy. We do take care of the nutrition of our kids. So when they come in, we give them breakfast, they have a snack, they have lunch, and they have an afternoon snack before they go home. Because for a big number of our students, that is the last meal of the day. So we take care and we track their health. We have a partnership with another entity that is called Shared Beat, who provides health services. So we have a pediatrician that comes three times a week, and he checks on kids. We give them the medicine they need or whatever is needed for them to stay healthy. And healthy in a full whole approach. So it's not just it's body, it's mind, it's spirit, trying to make them as whole in health as we can. So that is what we do with our kids. We provide everything our kids need to learn. Books, school materials, everything that is needed for them to be competent and to have all the information that they need to strive in life. For the basic diversificado, and that is the high school area, they go to public high schools. And that for us is really expensive because they have sometimes 2 to 3 uniforms, depending PE, the regular uniform, and the special uniform for specific classes. Like auto mechanics will require specific tools and a specific uniform. So we provide all of that. And just thinking about uniforms, that is a whole big amount of money to get them that. So what we do is we provide them with all of this materials and support so they can keep on being in school. What we want them is to graduate from high school, find a job, or go to the universities. These kids really want to be professionals. So you have kids that right now, our first group of students who was in school for the 9 years, they're moving into the senior year in high school. And they are really thinking of being lawyers, psychologists. They do want to do better in life. So that's part of the nice and success story that we can share, because they do come from families that are really, really poor, and they really have a hard time coping with whatever is needed to get their education to be professionals.
I'd imagine that in the early days, Hanley and her team, even if it was a small team, had a really great obstacle, right? I watched YouTube videos, and there's stories about her knocking on doors and saying, hey, would you let your kids come this afternoon? We're going to have snack, and we're going to be playing soccer for 2 hours. It's going to be safe, trust me. And of course, over time, the reputation of Safe Passage has grown. But if you're serving 500 approximately students, I'd imagine that there's thousands of students who could take advantage, right? Is it that financially, in the short term, for families, it just doesn't make sense to them? They'd rather have their kids working alongside them? Or is there some other reason that so many families have not taken advantage of Safe Passage?
Well, the reality is we have a limited capacity to serve. We have opened as much spaces as we can. And people do want to get their kids enrolled in Safe Passage, but we do have a budget, and we live on donations and grants and support from donors. So we do have a limited capacity to serve. We struggle because, for example, this year we just finished our enrolling process for the next school year. Our school starts in January. So we're at the end of this school year, we're looking into the next school year. And for enrolling for the 4-year-olds, we have 12 spaces, because there are people, little ones, coming from the early childhood into the preschool. And we have more than 50 people asking to be part of Safe Passage, and we have only 12 slots. So we do
difficult decisions to make.
Yes, and what we try is we really do a process where social workers are our key piece in the process, because what we want is to help people that are really in need, people that live in poverty, that will really make the best out of the services that Safe Passage can provide them in order to make a better life, in order to get a new opportunity in life. So, yeah, and for Hanley, it was really hard to get the people. When Hanley was starting, there was also this situation with adoptions, international adoptions, and so she had a hard time getting people to trust her, because there was this gringa who was going to steal the kids, and she had to show through her work and her perseverance that what she wanted was these kids to have a better opportunity in life. And she got to be successful, and really up to now, the community trusts Safe Passage. And you can have nice conversations with people, and they will tell you stories, because grandma was with Hanley when she was here, and now you have the grandkid. So it's really nice when you see that families keep on trusting Safe Passage.
We'll put the links for folks to learn more and to donate in the show notes. I can say, in my own small way, I donate to Safe Passage, and as a nonprofit, it's so heartwarming to see a nonprofit that's so well organized that every month I get an update. I get the annual report. I can see, how resources are being used. It's almost 80 cents out of every dollar that's donated goes directly back to students. It's a really, really high number for nonprofits. And, you learn things like during COVID or coming out of COVID, the food costs alone for Safe Passage have been just the food cost for serving those meals that you mentioned have been way, way, way higher between inflation and the increased needs of poverty. And these are things that, we don't think about necessarily, but as you say, you have a tight budget. You only can serve a small group of students compared to what the demand is out there in the community. What other challenges did Safe Passage face with COVID? Because COVID, as we know, didn't hit people the same way all around the world, right? The people who were more vulnerable prior to COVID typically came out on losing even more. Can you talk a little bit about how Safe Passage made it through?
Yes, we have a methodology that is project-based. We do expeditionary learning. So for us, it's a hands-on project, community-based education. And we were starting our school year in March of 2020 when the pandemic hit and we were to close. So it was really hard on us because some people can tell you, you can go online and do other type of education. Here, that is not an option. No. So we couldn't go on with projects because kids were not with us. And we kind of needed to reinvent our educational process in order to keep the kids engaged. But also we were worried about their nutrition because we were responsible for that. And now kids were not allowed to come back to school. So teachers were amazing. And what they did is we started study packets. We broke in little pieces our expeditions that are 6 weeks long. We broke them into little pieces and we started providing those learning packets for parents to come into a different facility that was not the school because we were not allowed to open. So we moved into another facility and parents will come, pick up their nutrition packet and also the educational packet for kids to work at home. And then 15 days later, they will come back and bring in the school, the homework, the project, the final product that they were to present. And then we will hand out the new study guide. And we kept on doing that for 2 years. Wow. So the ones who really suffered were the little ones who were started their reading and writing process, the learning, the basic skills learning. That was really difficult for us because you have parents who are illiterate and here you are sending activities and packets for kids to learn how to read and write by themselves. Yeah. With much support. Our older kids got the responsibility to be their siblings' teacher. So we had the básico kids, the middle school kids, checking on homework for their siblings, trying to help them. We developed, for the families who were able to have a smartphone and they had WhatsApp, we created WhatsApp groups to send short videos to help the kids do their study guide and open those for questions. So teachers were there ready to support the kids because we were not able to reach them in person. On 2022, we were allowed to open 2 days a week. Mm-hmm. Because they put you some regulations about the amount of square meters that each student needed to have in order to be in school. And some of our classrooms are really small. So we had to be creative and create 2 shifts so kids could come into school. So last year we did better, but still the learning loss is really big. This year, first, second, and third graders, some of them, well, all first graders and second graders, and some of the third graders are learning to read and write and learning the basics of math. And so this year we had to enrich our program a lot to try to start to close the gap. We are aware we're not going to be able to close the gap in 1 year. So we are starting, this year we had a program, and next year we're going to launch another program to try to cope with this learning loss that is really, really big.
Yeah, that's something that we see all over the world in various ways and to various degrees, right? And we're seeing it in California as well. But I think most of the data worldwide shows just what you said, which is people who were more vulnerable previous to COVID fell farther behind. People who didn't have access to the internet, didn't have high levels of literacy at home, or a steady parent at home, the presence there to help students, they just fell completely, even much farther behind. But we face the same thing, and I think, it's a long-term process, right? We hope we can continue to close the gap for all students, but as long as they're with us, and then can you talk about, you mentioned parents several times. Can you talk about the role of parents in the success of Safe Passage? Because obviously the parents give permission for the students to come, and there's a commitment that they're going to show up every day. How does that look, and what's the role of parents in your community?
Parents are really a very key element in here, because we focus on kids, but if they don't have a parent that really supports and believes that they can do better and they can work in their school projects, because it's easier for some parents to see that the kid is growing, for example, when they get to be teenagers, and they look at them like a possibility to have an extra hand to work and grow the family income. So our parents are really supportive of the education of their kids. They're here every time you need them to be involved. They support you in any way they can. So they have clear responsibilities. For example, they do need to contribute to the kids' education. So economically, they pay about $1.50 a month to have the kid in school. And that is just to make them responsible economically for this education and this formation. But also, whenever you need something from them, expertise. For example, one of our expeditions was on the tortilla, the corn tortilla that is the basic element of nutrition in this country. So, and most of them, they do know about how to grow corn, how to create tortillas, all the basic elements that go around the tortilla. So they're our experts, and they come in and they teach the kids in what is their expertise. So they do support us in all the ways they can.
I'd imagine that for Safe Passage to be successful, there also has to be some relationship with local government entities in Guatemala, non-governmental organizations, whether they're domestic or foreign. How does that all fit together, including volunteers from abroad? I went as part of a Bowdoin College service trip because kind of in Hanley's memory. But when I was there were, I was already an adult, but there were college students from the U.S. who were volunteering as well. How does that all fit together, and what kind of relationships does Safe Passage have with the local educational authorities, the local government authorities, the governance of Guatemala City, I guess?
We do have and encourage a good relationship with the municipality. The municipality knows who we are, and they help us in any way they can. Also, we have other NGOs here in Guatemala that also are dedicated to education. So what we have been working together to build support and create relationships, because all of us serve the same, even in different parts of the country, we serve the same population, people that are impoverished or that are struggling to survive. So we try to create a consortium to support our good practices and really support each other to learn new and improve our own school practices. With the Ministry of Education, we do have a good relationship with them. They know who we are and they support us, but it's kind of weird because you don't belong to, even though we are classified as a private school. In the States, you talk about a private school and that is a different level. Right. Here in Guatemala, we are a private school, but we don't fit into the private school world. We're different. So we do get a lot of support and from our supervisors in the public system, but also we kind of nurture ourselves from this consortium of NGOs dedicated to education.
How do you, and this might not be a simple answer, but it's something I reflect on a lot. How does the culture at Safe Passage within the staff make sure that the students are seen in an empowering way and with their full potential, rather than seen with pity, looked at with pity? And so I think about especially foreign volunteers showing up and they're there for a week or two and they come in, and they come maybe with like the idea that they're going to save someone, and my experience when I went to Safe Passage was I walked into classrooms and I met with staff and I thought, this is like the most empowering environment I've ever been in, right? That despite really, really tough circumstances in, as you mentioned, a really physically dangerous neighborhood that we weren't really supposed to walk around in, even though I managed to walk around a little bit there. It wasn't a pity project, right? This is an empowering, life-changing, life-altering experience and project to be part of. Can you talk about how that culture is built and fostered?
Yeah, when we started 8 years ago with this project of changing the methodology and changing the learning approach for the kids, we started by the culture. And we started by addressing the social emotional needs of the kids, but also building a strong community. So what we do is we have smaller groups that we call crew, where kids every day for 30 minutes in the afternoon and 30 minutes in the morning, they get to meet with their peers, share their stories, learn about values, get and develop social emotional tools to address what's going on in their lives. And teachers are here to support them to grow. So it's not the teacher coming in saving kids, right. It's empowering the kids to get so they can learn and they can lead their own learning process. And volunteers come into this same culture of here, we're all learners. We are learning from each other. So when they come in, they have a role. If they, for example, if people is coming from the US, taking advantage of their knowledge in the English language is for us an advantage. So they can come into the English classes and help the kids develop conversation abilities. So they're here to work with the kids. They are not here to save the kids or to paint a wall or to, they are here to be with the kids. And the environment, teachers here, when I hire a teacher, what I see is the possibility for this person to really engage with what's happening in the school. And so far, teachers are part of this culture, they're part of this entity with heart and soul. It's not just their professional work. They really engage in serving the kids and giving them the best opportunity they can. And because our methodology is not a traditional one, usually in public schools, the teacher has the lead, the teacher is the one that talks, the teacher is the one that says what's going to be done in the classroom. And here, the teacher is just the mentor, the teacher is the facilitator, and the kids are the ones who are driving the learning process. That is different here. So when people come in and see that in the classroom, usually volunteers engage really, really well. And we get a lot from volunteers. For example, we have teachers who come and serve, and for us to improve our practices through the experiences of these teachers, it's a great help. Also, we have other professionals, psychologists that come and helps us out because the need is really big. The social emotional need, even it was big, and with the pandemic just got to be bigger. So addressing that area for us is something where extra hands are also always welcomed.
Yeah, I'd encourage listeners to look at the website. There's a lot of information and also links to starting to go down the road to be a volunteer, a donor, a visitor to as Patty was mentioning, lend to that process of mutual learning and support. So the organization itself is run, for lack of a better word, by an executive director, was my understanding, located in Guatemala. And then there's a portion of the organization that is in the United States, in Maine, and then the other portion in Guatemala. Can you explain and describe a little bit how that works and how it fits together to make a whole that's greater than its parts? Because it's hard enough running an organization of individuals where you're all in the same city and general vicinity, but this is different time zones, different countries, different cultures, and different language. So how does that all come together?
Yeah, the office in the US is very supportive of what we do in Guatemala. So they focus mainly on development, and they structure their work around what we do in Guatemala. So they are really open to learn from what's happening here and share to the world what we're doing here. And they are very creative to get different ways to support us. For example, we have a need at this point to develop this program for learning loss. So they move all their contacts in the US so we can get all what we need to get this program running and to help the kids. And they do all the grant writing, they manage the volunteer communication. And then once they have, for example, the volunteers who want to come, then the connection is done here to Guatemala. And then we start a conversation to get this person in the best place where this person can serve and can give the best of him or herself to the kids and the community. So it's really complicated because you have two different cultures, but at the end, the heart of serving this community, I think, is what unites the two different entities in the two different countries into one whole effort to get the job done. And so far for 20 years, it has worked. So
you mentioned obviously the challenge of COVID, which is something that we all faced everywhere in the world. But apart from that, what would you say has been the biggest challenge that Safe Passage has faced, maybe continues to face? And then I'm going to ask you, as a second part of that, is what has been the greatest success of Safe Passage? So greatest challenge that you've faced, maybe you're still facing it, and then the greatest success so far.
I think one of the greatest challenge that we might have faced in the past year is people believing that even though we are working with kids at risk, we are able to deliver quality education and get kids prepared to be successful in life. Usually, when you talk to people that you work with kids whose families live around the city dump, they will say kind of, oh, it's like a public school. Oh, it's a low quality education. And showing people that what we do is a high quality education for kids, and that we need a lot of resources to make this to make people see that what we are doing is changing people's lives, that what we're doing is really having a positive result. That sometimes is really hard for people to see.
It's almost as if they're lumping you in with all the other schools, like almost like a charity project. And when in fact, it sounds like, as you describe your methodology, what you're doing with your students is actually fostering more creativity and more problem-solving skills in students than they might be getting if they went to most of the other schools in Guatemala, right? Where you said everything is kind of what I would consider to be kind of a little bit old-fashioned, right? The teacher's up in front, rows of students, and the teacher controls everything. That's an interesting challenge. I didn't anticipate that you were going to say that. What has been the greatest success or celebration, would you say, certainly in your time at Safe Passage?
The greatest celebration, I will say, it's going to be this year, looking at the first group of students graduating from high school. Mm-hmm. And having those high schools recognizing that our students are different, and they do want to get more of our students into their schools. That a principal in a high school, in a public high school, tells you, when are your kids coming? I can open more room for these kids if you want to bring them into my high school. That is something that where you can see success, where you can see that kids it doesn't matter anymore where they're coming from, because discrimination is something really hard here. For these kids, finding a job, it's really hard, because once they say where they live, many companies will not hire them because of the idea that this is an area of drug dealers and gang members.
And for those people who aren't familiar, I think what you're referring to too, Guatemala City has zones, right? And so within each zone, there's even other neighborhoods, smaller neighborhoods. And so if you mention that you're from this zone in this area, right away, they're kind of painting a picture in their head of who you are, right? And who your family is.
Yeah, so we have partners in the private sector that will open their different entities to really hire our kids. They start out with a summer job, and when they see the quality of who they are, then they hire them in a position. So we do have really good partners that help us out. But for the kids to show that they are capable of, no matter where they live, no matter where they come from, that those are success stories that really fill your heart, and you can see that there's a better future for these kids.
Thank you for sharing that. I had just a couple more questions. I guess I'm going to ask on the topic of the students in Safe Passage. What's one of the most misunderstood things about your students? So, as you say, the outside world, private business, people you run into socially, maybe foreigners who come, they form pictures about the students in Safe Passage. What's something that they might be overlooking about the quality of these individuals, whether it's their determination or creativity or resilience? What should the world know that people are overlooking?
These kids are smart, resilient, and really with a big heart. When you come to Safe Passage, you can see it. All the kids are open to get to know who you are and what you're doing and learn from you. They are open to share and to work with whoever comes into the school. So, and sometimes people do have their own prejudice, because they talk to you like, these are poor kids. They're going to be thankful with just a little thing that I give them. Right. And when you get into the classroom, you see that they are the ones giving you a lot of things, a lot of opportunities, a lot of learning, when you are open to share the time and be with them.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think we too quickly, we jump to conclusions really quickly. We oversimplify situations and don't really get down to the human level. That's something I also felt when I was there. It was deep kind of human connection that cut past all the stereotypes and really got to the human interaction. I have one more question for you, but before I get to that, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you'd like to add to the conversation that you think our listeners would benefit from knowing about Safe Passage?
I would love to say that Safe Passage is a community. Even though we have different programs, we work together, and we have one goal that is really trying to break the cycle of poverty through education. So all what we do is with passion and heart to really break the cycle and get these kids the opportunity in life that they wouldn't get in any other place. So for us, teaching is our passion, and helping the community to thrive and be a better community, it's something that is really, really important.
Thank you for that. I'm going to close with kind of a thought exercise. So let's say Patty is given the opportunity to create a billboard for the side of the road that drivers can see when they drive past. And it's a billboard to convey to the world what's going on at Safe Passage, what the dream is, what the vision is, what the hope is, and also what your dream and vision and hope personally is. What does that billboard say? What would you write on it?
I think I will write the 3 key words we use to describe Safe Passage. That is hope, opportunity, and education. And I will show kids who are happy, really learning and thriving through the learning process, but also showing smiles of kids who really feel the love and the belonging in the Safe Passage community.
Thank you so much. I think that that's a good place to end the conversation on hope and belonging. And I really appreciate you taking your time this afternoon to chat with us for a little bit, Pati. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. Safe Passage is always open for volunteers, visitors, everybody who has a talent that would like to share with us and make us a better community. We're always open. So make sure if you have the opportunity to come down, we would love to come and revisit Safe Passage and see how we have grown in this 25 years since we started as a very small daycare.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening to the Superintendent's Hangout. You can follow me on Twitter at DVS1970. Please be sure to share this show with friends and family on social media and in the real world. Thank you to Brad Bacayal for editing and production assistance, and to Tina Royster for scheduling and logistics. Thanks for hanging out, and have a great day.